This is 100 to 0 and back again. And I labeled this video Serrapeptase versus Lipitor, which is a little misleading because they work in two totally different ways and they're two totally different things. But in my case, it's a very relevant thing. It might be relevant to other stroke and or heart attack people, or people who have any sort of blood clotting issues. Serrapeptase is a proteolytic enzyme. Lipitor is an incredibly well-selling drug that is based on the lipid hypothesis. And the lipid hypothesis is this idea that if you eat saturated fats, they're going to clog your arteries, and that's how you get arteriosclerosis or clogged arteries. The lipid theory has, in fact, scientifically not proven out. It's been proven in many studies to not work out very well at all. What Lipitor does well is it does reduce total cholesterol, but in fact, its ability to reduce total mortality has been very weak in studies. If you're taking Lipitor, if your doctor's just sort of suggesting Lipitor in sort of a prophylactic sort of way, you don't have big problems, then I definitely would question. I'd go look at the literature and see. You can see that in fact Lipitor's ability to reduce all-cause mortality is very poor. It does reduce your cholesterol, but in fact what we found with cholesterol, we used to say, well, LDL cholesterol was what was really bad, and HDL cholesterol was good for you, but in fact the latest research shows that in fact it's not LDL. LDL is not bad for you at all. In fact, in a general survey, the people who live the longest have very high LDLs. And the reason that appears to be the case is that there are two types of LDLs. There are what they are called, one is they call the dense LDL, dense small LDL. The other ones they call light fluffy LDL. And the one that seems to cause problem is the dense LDL. You can look this up. Almost nobody, very few doctors actually order the test to show the difference between the two types of LDLs, which is very disappointing. It shows that they're really out of touch. And they didn't do so in my case. My total cholesterol numbers look pretty good, by the way. Although when I was in my 30s, my cholesterol numbers did not look good. That was when I was eating what we call the standard American diet, or SAD diet. I was eating lots of carbohydrates, as I suggested, almost no saturated fats and very little meat. And my cholesterol was very bad at the time. But I changed that many years before I had my stroke. I was intermittent fasting, and I was eating not eating many carbohydrates at all. So I didn't have any type 2 diabetes problems. Anyway, back to the lipid hypothesis. The lipid hypothesis is not proven out to be true at all. And Lipitor specifically for that lowers your cholesterol. So what does Serrapeptase do? Well, Serrapeptase is a proteolytic enzyme which breaks up dead proteins, particularly fibrin. Fibrin is the protein. In fact, blood clots are mainly made of fibrin. Fibrin is used to help your blood clot. And from an evolutionary point of view, probably having higher levels of fibrin and clotting faster was probably a very good thing. I mean, you'd live to the age where you reproduce, and whether you died of a stroke or heart attack or something later thereon, from an evolutionary point of view, it's not all that relevant. So having high fibrin was probably not selected out, was probably selected for in general. And I'm pretty sure that was my main problem, because I was doing all the other things, so what, again, going back to Serrapeptase, it breaks down protein. It is originally was found as a enzyme that silkworms use to break out of their cocoon. And it seems that it works particularly on dead tissue, dead proteins. And I've been using it. It's seems to have been very helpful in reducing my blood pressure. So I'm assuming that's because it's doing its job of helping to clean out my arteries. There have been some scientific studies. I'll put them in the description below. There have been even more studies of nattokinase, which is another proteolytic enzyme, which also is antithrombotic and breaks up fibrin. Fibrolytic is what they call it. It's also a blood thinner, and so I take a little nattokinase, but I take mainly serrapeptase. And serrapeptase has been used in Europe quite a bit. It hasn't been studied that much for unfortunately for this particular application, but nattokinase has, and I'll put some links in for nattokinase too. But the reason for not just taking nattokinase is nattokinase as a blood thinner has caused some people problems with bleeding too much. I haven't had any problems at all. But with serrapeptase seems to have many of the same properties without being a blood thinner, and actually I think it's better. It's been shown to break up scar tissue. A number of it's often prescribed to people, women who have problems getting pregnant, have scar tissue in their fallopian tubes, and it seems to me that it works very much like the same way autophagy works, where it helps break up dead tissue and get it out of your system, which is can only be good in general. So I think serrapeptase for many people is a much better choice than Lipitor in helping, particularly let's say you have high blood pressure and they start prescribing you blood pressure meds and Lipitor. I think I would definitely I'd shy away against the Lipitor unless I was sure that I was a really big risk. And of course, I'm not a doctor. I've been in the science fields, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not, in fact, in the biological fields at all. So take everything I say with, do your own research. Take it with that prescription that you should do your own research. But serrapeptase seems to be the main thing that has helped to reduce my blood pressure, and seems to be more consistent. It's not like blood pressure meds where it knocks it down when you take it, but then comes back up immediately when they begin to wear off. So I suggest serrapeptase to help clean out your arteries and to lower your blood pressure. And it could be good for a number of other things. Like I said, it seems like it works in the same way as autophagy works. I have done a number of multi-day fasts to promote autophagy, but it seems like serrapeptase for what I needed would have been more helpful. So again, the lipid hypothesis that strokes are caused by this buildup of fats in your arteries because you ate saturated fats just has not turned out to be true at all. In fact, eating saturated fats seems to be one of the best ways to increase your HDL. And the better marker, but it would be best to find out about the LDLs, whether you have the fluffy ones or the dense hard ones. The dense hard ones tend to scar your veins, which tends then they try to heal, and it seems that the healing process is where you suddenly get this buildup of fats in the skin. But it is not just that it's not that you're eating fatty. In fact, eating seed oils and eating a high carbohydrate diet is the best way to increase your amount of dense lipoproteins you have and to clog your arteries. And it's also associated with type 2 diabetes. Most strokes seem to be associated and heart disease with type 2 diabetes, in fact. But that was not my problem. I was working very hard making sure that that was not my problem. So I think for some people it may be that it's just fibrin. And some other things associated with excess fibrin are sinus problems, particularly sinusitis, which I had when I was a lot of problems with in my 20s, 30s, and early 40s. I got a little better as I got older. And also is associated with high blood pressure. So Serrapeptase may be the answer for those of you where you have a risk of stroke or heart attacks due to blood clotting. Anyway, that's my suggestion. My suggestion is to add Serrapeptase. It's a fairly inexpensive product and has been used in Europe widely for a long time for as an analgesic replacement. It's a replacement for NSAIDs and other stuff. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway, I hope that helps some of you. Have a